The hero lay defeated, a fearsome demon standing over their broken form as the desperate call to retreat echoed through the forest. Amidst the terrified shouts to flee, Silva stood firm, a curious resolve in his eyes despite the desperate situation unfolding around him. With a heavy stomp, the triumphant creature advanced, seemingly indifferent to the chaos it had wrought. With the demon closing in and allies fallen around him, Silva refused to yield. He lunged forward, his blade a swift blur as he thought, "I guess it won't matter." The heavy strike landed true, cleaving through his target with a violent spray. Beneath his unassuming exterior, the extraordinary power Silva possessed, forged by game knowledge, remained a fiercely guarded secret. Over a sprawling cityscape, the Grand Academy promised a place for forging bonds. This was the world of Brave of Aster, a celebrated RPG where heroes rose to fight demons. Within its hallowed halls, adventurers honed their skills and deepened their companionships. They embraced their roles, ready to challenge the formidable darkness that threatened the land. Silva remembered this world fondly, especially how characters could form powerful connections in the game he loved most before his reincarnation. It was a place where special relationships blossomed, a core feature he now found himself living. His previous life ended abruptly, a victim of relentless overwork in a grueling black company. Fortunately, he awoke in Brave of Aster, the cherished game world he knew so well. Now, this familiar world was his reality, and he was ready to face it anew. Here, in the royal capital of Zalencia, Silva had settled into life as a gatekeeper until a familiar voice called out to him. Modi, the gruff gatekeeper, grumbled about the shift change, ready for his relief. Handing over his duties, he reminded Silva of the shopping errand, as the younger man lamented not being the protagonist of his own story. Despite such minor inconveniences, Silva mused that his current life wasn't so bad after all. Silva, performing his market errand, mused on the easy life of a gatekeeper, paid even for standing still. As he received his purchase, thoughts drifted to the stark contrast with his relentlessly busy previous life. A wide, genuine smile graced his lips, affirming this tranquil existence truly felt like heaven. His blissful reverie, however, quickly broke as a boisterous vendor loudly touted a sword to a passing young lady. Silva's blissful reverie was shattered as he recognized the young lady, none other than Charl Orlando, an important early party member from his beloved game. Witnessing her noble earnestness, Silva couldn't help but inwardly cheer, remembering she was the character he admired and supported above all others. The young woman, however, seemed flustered by the vendor's suggestion, clarifying that she was not a swordsman. Charl listened intently as the vendor exaggerated the power of a holy sword, while Silva internally scoffed at the obvious lie, finding her innocent sincerity endearing. Overwhelmed by her earnest charm, he privately thanked the heavens for his reincarnation, proclaiming it was worth dying for this moment. As Charl began to walk away, he instinctively called out, "Wait, Charl!" His expression was a mix of sudden urgency and surprise as she turned. Silva, recognizing the game's protagonist, Alan, immediately called out the vendor for selling a blatant fake. Walking away with Charl, he couldn't shake the strange feeling of seeing such a pivotal character right before his eyes. His thoughts then drifted, realizing that given the circumstances, Charl might very well become Alan's love interest. Silva, noticing Charl's task, offered to escort her to the castle gate for her herb gathering. Interrupting their conversation, the persistent vendor tried to pull them back, offering a discount on his wares. He declared with fervor that even an ordinary person could become a hero with his special blade. Silva pondered the vendor's insistent offer, a quiet skepticism etched on his face. He politely but firmly declined, pushing the blade back towards the persistent salesman. With a gentle smile, he reiterated that, as a mere gatekeeper, a simple blade suited his needs just fine. Silva waved dismissively, suggesting the vendor seek out someone else to peddle his wares, leaving the salesman baffled. Yet, as he turned away, a complex thought lingered, hinting at a deeper truth within him. Silva, dismissing the idea of heroism, considered himself merely a background character. Back in his previous life, before reincarnation, he had been utterly crushed by the demands of his job. His sole solace during those grueling days was immersing himself in the world of Brave of Asterisk. Even now, the vivid images of its cherished characters were etched deep within his memory. His mind lingered on Charl, truly his absolute favorite. Yet every character held a distinct charm, and the story itself was simply top tier. He envisioned a peaceful future, trusting the original scenario would unfold. For Alan and his companions were destined to defeat the demon threat and usher in an era of peace. Silva truly wished to see the peaceful future of the game world unfold before him. Yet, this was a perilous world where demons relentlessly attacked humans, so he knew survival demanded he become stronger. To ensure that future, he resolved to leverage his extensive game knowledge, focusing on early-stage power leveling before diving into the main storyline. Despite his intensive training and pushing his stats to their limits over years, Silva never intended to usurp the protagonist role. He considered himself a purist when it came to the original story, upholding its integrity above all else. Watching the destined heroes from afar brought him true satisfaction, and he would not allow anyone, even himself, to alter their path. A quiet, knowing smile graced his lips, affirming his unwavering commitment to that unseen role. Silva returned to his post, quietly contemplating the original stories as Modi, the senior gatekeeper, greeted his arrival. His face then lit up with an inexplicable joy, declaring something really nice to the confused man. Still baffled, Modi changed the subject with a wink, suggesting a drink after work. Silva eagerly agreed, his high spirits evident as Modi wondered what good fortune had befallen him. A panicked shout suddenly sliced through the morning air, echoing from the gate. Modi, startled by the urgent cry, turned sharply, demanding to know what was happening as Silva looked on. Before he could get an answer, a monstrous demon with pale hair burst through, its terrifying presence confirming Modi's horrified gasp. The panicked cries intensified as more demons breached the defenses, spreading chaos deeper into the royal capital. Modi, still reeling, turned to Silva, who had quietly uttered a familiar name. The Day of the Wedge, dash. In a flash, Silva recognized this as the Day of the Wedge, a pre-story event from the game where united demons attack, historically resolved by heroes without major lasting damage. Modi furiously rallied the terrified guards, urging them to hold the line until the hero's arrival. Silva, however, calmly assessed the attacking demon, recognizing it as merely a level 1 threat. Despite its low rank, the creature proved far too strong for the ordinary soldiers to handle. Observing their losing struggle, a quiet resolve settled over him, knowing someone had to act. Facing the level 1 demon, Silva engaged it cautiously, intent on stalling without altering the original timeline. He bought precious seconds as the beast roared, holding the line with practiced ease. Still, a quiet anxiety settled over him. The true hero needed to arrive quickly. Suddenly, a brave guard charged forward, yelling a defiant challenge. The demon, however, retaliated swiftly, impaling the soldier with brutal force. A worried Silva called out to the injured senpais, who merely shrugged off his wound as a scratch. Cursing his own lapse, he watched the fleeing demon disappear, furious that it had slipped away. Ignoring the confused shouts of a gatekeeper demanding an explanation, Silva pressed on. The veteran gatekeeper, left standing alone, could only wonder at his astonishing speed. The morning air was filled with the gentle chirping of distant birds. Charl sat by the calm river, her feet playfully immersed in the cool water, a soft smile gracing her lips. She carefully retrieved the last item from the cool river, her task finally complete. With a contented sigh, Charl thought it was time to join Alan and the others. Suddenly, a faint rustling sound from the nearby bushes caught her attention. Standing cautiously, she called out, wondering if someone was hidden within the foliage. Silva cursed the demon's unexpected speed, pursuing it through the dense undergrowth. A fleeting thought of more drastic measures, like crippling his foe, crossed his mind. His eyes suddenly snapped open, recognizing a familiar voice nearby. From the riverbank, Charl looked up, her voice a startled query as she heard her name, Charl? Seeing Silva standing there, she then whispered, "Why are you here?" Silva gripped his sword, internally reaffirming that Charl's survival during the Day of the Wedge was assured by the game's scenario. Yet her wide, startled eyes suggested a danger far more immediate than his distant memories. A cold sweat beaded on his brow as he struggled to cling to the certainty of the original timeline. Then, a sudden, fierce resolve ignited within his gaze. The demon, now visible, lunged directly towards Charl as Silva's eyes widened in alarm. Its monstrous face snarled, preparing to strike the defenseless girl. A terrified scream escaped Charl's lips as she instinctively recoiled. Enraged, Silva roared, demanding what the creature had dared to do to his Charl. The ancient Zerinzia-style swordsmanship flared to life, a testament to his hidden strength. Charl watched, her terror giving way to an overwhelming awe at the display. She instinctively recoiled, a wave of profound relief washing over her. The demon was caught in a furious impact, its monstrous form momentarily halted. His Komagami technique then erupted, sending the monstrous demon spinning from the vicious impact. Charl, still reeling from the sudden rescue, covered her mouth, a faint blush spreading across her cheeks. Silva, sword still in hand, glanced back at the demon's mangled form before looking towards the girl he had just saved. His gentle eyes searched her face, ensuring she was truly unharmed. A sweet, relieved smile blossomed on Charl's lips as she met his gaze, her heart full. Silva frantically asked Charl if she was injured, to which she calmly replied she was fine. With a gentle smile, Charl then turned the question back to him. He suddenly stiffened, realizing his composure had completely broken. Flustered, Silva pointed to himself, loudly proclaiming he was merely a gatekeeper. Her voice softened as she clarified she was asking for his name, not his job. Charl, her face alight, eagerly asked his name, to which a flustered Silva stammered, "S. Silva." He repeated it softly, still blushing, as Alan and the vendor remained mere blurs in the distant background. Charl then called out his name with a joyful, "Whoa!" and a sincere, "Thank you." From that very day, his life began to change dramatically, heralded by her delighted proclamation of, "So cute!" While Silva beamed innocently in his humble uniform, Kaguya offered a knowing wink, clearly privy to the extraordinary power the mob soldier tried so diligently to conceal. The city walls stood tall, guarding the quiet routine Silva so desperately sought to maintain. Yet his carefully constructed peace was now shattered as he recalled the fateful moment his path intertwined with Charl's. His mind raced, burdened by the realization that saving her and defeating a demon so publicly had undoubtedly altered the story's destined flow. A grizzled knight delivered an urgent summons for Silva, a direct order from the captain of the First Holy Knights. Silva's heart dropped as he processed the unexpected and authoritative call. The knight's knowing grin and ominous jest about picking up his bones only amplified his anxiety. "Don't say such ominous things," Silva retorted, as the knight quickly apologized for his morbid humor. Despite his apology, the knight's next words confirmed his fears. The First Holy Knight captain was notoriously strict, and a lecture might be the best outcome. Silva arrived at the imposing Holy Knight's headquarters, his anxiety growing with each towering wall. Knights directed him through the massive gates, their confirmations echoing his unwelcome arrival. As he walked deeper inside, his thoughts fixated on the impending meeting with her, the notoriously strict captain. He wished desperately he could avoid this entire confrontation and return to his quiet life. Elda, the First Holy Knight captain, calmly examined a document within her quiet office. Her focus on the report shifted as she noticed a tiny figure outside her window. A sharp, knowing spark ignited deep within her gaze. Then, a broad, enthusiastic smile broke across her face, eagerly awaiting his arrival. Hearing a calm voice invite him in, Silva tentatively opened the door. Standing before him was Elda, the First Holy Knight captain, a striking woman of silver hair and deep blue eyes who greeted him with a warm smile. Her pleasant expression, however, only confirmed his deepest anxieties. She was one of the game's formidable, romanceable heroines. Silva, still flustered by the unexpected summons, finally managed to ask Elda why she had called him. She looked at him with a slight blush, playfully chiding his apparent slowness. A chill ran down his spine as he realized she must somehow know his hidden power, and his bad feeling only intensified. Elda then leaned forward, her confident gaze piercing, as she directly questioned him about the demon he had defeated. His carefully constructed facade instantly crumbled, leaving him wide-eyed and utterly exposed. Silva feigned confusion, pretending not to understand Elda's reference to the recent incident. Elda pressed on, explaining that a demon's corpse torn to pieces had been discovered. Her smile widened ominously as she revealed the demon bore traces of the Komagami technique, a feat no one else could have accomplished. A wave of dread washed over him, completely stripping away his carefully maintained disguise. Elda, seeing through his act, then directly challenged him, insisting someone of his immense strength belonged among the knights. Silva knew admitting his power here would shatter his carefully constructed peace. He desperately tried to deflect, reminding Elda that a hero's obligation to report was the exception to her rule. "You're naive," Elda declared with a confident smirk, instantly deflating his feeble argument. She explained that while heroes must report their deeds, the identity of this particular demon slayer remained officially unconfirmed. A triumphant, charming smile, she then gently insisted it was time he gave up and quietly joined the Knight's Order. His eyes widened in panic, realizing the full implication of her words, and he vehemently refused to accept this fate. Elda stared in disbelief, questioning how he could still deny the undeniable and refuse her offer. Slumping over her desk, she sighed, utterly baffled by his staunch refusal to join the order. She tried to entice him with promises of higher wages, better gear, and increased benefits compared to a simple gatekeeper. Silva, however, was only concerned about the implied role of supporting the hero and undertaking missions that would further entangle him with the main story. Silva's worry deepened as Elda pressed him about his reluctance to engage with the protagonist, highlighting his fear of disrupting the narrative. Despite her attempts to persuade him, he firmly stated his unwavering decision not to become a knight. Elda simply acknowledged his refusal, a subtle shift in her expression hinting at a deeper disappointment. Rising from her desk, she then announced her next move, leaving him wide-eyed and stunned. A mischievous blush dusted her cheeks as she declared she couldn't afford to be particular about her methods, making Silva gasp in shock. Elda, with a mischievous grin, presented Silva with an official registration form bearing his own signature. He stared in disbelief at the unfamiliar flourish of his name, utterly certain he had never put it to paper. Her triumphant, starry-eyed expression revealed the audacity of her actions. For who would question a knight captain's decree? Silva's face crumpled in dismay, realizing her commitment to recruiting him knew no bounds. Then, a playful chuckle broke the tension as Elda admitted she couldn't truly compel him to join. Instead, she offered him a sealed scroll, a different kind of proposal perhaps. With a resolute expression, Elda stated her firm intention to prevent him from joining. Silva mused that Bardre was a well-known noble house, wondering if the applicant was their son. Elda, however, scoffed, declaring this particular man to be a complete scumbag. Despite his rotten character, she explained, they couldn't simply fail a noble like him, as pressure would likely come from above. With a pointed finger and a stern gaze, she then revealed Silva's part in her plan. Elda explained that he must face Brazio in the entrance exam's mock battle, completely overwhelming him to prove his incompetence. A quiet dread settled over Silva as he understood his task was essentially to sabotage the man. He then asked for confirmation that she would cease trying to recruit him into the Knight Order if he did this. Elda's radiant smile confirmed her agreement, assuring him that she was counting on his success. The imposing walls of the Knight Order headquarters loomed under the city sky. Silva sighed deeply as he walked away, the weight of his new assignment heavy on his shoulders. A troublesome task had indeed been thrust upon him. While Brazio was not part of the original main story, Silva worried his involvement with the Knight Order could still inadvertently disrupt the scenario. Silva mused that Brazio's absence from the main storyline made everything about him entirely unpredictable. He vowed never to repeat past mistakes, needing to gather information while minimizing contact with the main characters. Suddenly, a light tap on his shoulder pulled him from his thoughts. Kaguya's playful voice called out Silva's name, pulling him from his anxious thoughts. His eyes widened in absolute surprise, a sudden jolt disrupting his quiet contemplation. A knowing, mischievous smile graced her lips as she leaned in closer. Just as he vowed to avoid main characters, he stumbled upon Charl, utterly flustered by the timing. Panicked, Silva quickly tried to reassure her, proclaiming his happiness to see her despite his internal turmoil. Charl pressed Silva, asking why he had disappeared so suddenly after saving her, admitting she had been searching for him ever since. He clapped his hands over his face, profusely apologizing for his unannounced departure. Charl hummed thoughtfully, her gaze still sharp with a hint of suspicion. Then, a sudden realization sparked in her eyes as she pointed a finger at him. A quizzical frown formed as she wondered why Silva knew her name so well. Charl explained her knowledge of his name came from seeing his entry on a participant list for a social gathering she was assigned to guard. A wave of guilt washed over Silva for his earlier deception towards her. Gently, Charl told him there was no need for such formality, though he knew it wasn't so simple. Her expression then shifted to a playful, yet resolute pout. Overwhelmed, Silva could only manage a quiet acknowledgement. Charl earnestly offered her help with anything, but Silva, flustered, tried to deflect her gratitude. Internally, however, a sense of duty overwhelmed him, compelling him to assist his favorite character despite his reservations about altering the scenario. Putting on a brave smile, he then invited Charl to join him in some inquiries he needed to make. In the bustling entertainment district of Zarencia royal capital, Silva began his inquiries into the prominent Bardley family. Whispers confirmed the family's dark reputation, hinting at their involvement in illegal activities despite their royal connections. As the grim details settled, Silva and Charl continued their search, digesting the unsettling information. Despite the troubling investigation, Charl found her gaze drifting to Silva, a soft blush coloring her cheeks. Silva led the way, his gaze sweeping the bustling district as he noted their search area based on witness reports. Charl's eyes then landed on a curious sign featuring a bed and a heart, pointing the way down a narrow alley. Turning to him with a coy, blushing smile, she playfully asked where he was planning to take her. Silva immediately erupted into a flustered panic, vigorously denying any such intention. She giggled, admitting it was just a joke, a teasing glint in her eyes. Then, regaining her composure, she hoped aloud they would find Brazios soon, gently pulling him along to continue their investigation. Brazio Bardrey, known to frequent the entertainment district nightly, squandered his parents' wealth with carefree abandon. Yet, as Silva and Charl walked, they wondered which particular establishment he might be in. Perhaps they had arrived a bit too early, and a telltale growl from Silva's stomach underscored their waning patience. With a blush, Silva sheepishly asked Charl if she minded if they grabbed something to eat. She readily admitted she was starving as well, prompting him to suggest they seek out a place with a promising aroma. Just then her eyes lit up and she pointed ahead, claiming to have caught a delicious aroma she wanted to investigate. Charl took a joyous, enormous bite of her hamburger. Silva watched, mildly surprised that a noble like her enjoyed such a commoner's dish, despite remembering it from the game's lore. A crestfallen expression crossed her face as the filling inevitably tumbled from her grip, leaving her sad. He observed, realizing her small mouth and hands simply made it difficult to manage such a hefty meal. Despite the challenge, Charl still found some joy, declaring she didn't mind just eating the buns. Seeing her adapt with such earnestness, Silva realized this must be her usual adorable method for enjoying the meal. His heart swelled with such overwhelming joy at witnessing her charm that he felt lightheaded, indulging in a delightful fix of his favorite character. After their meal, Silva thanked her for the company, pondering where they should search next as the day grew late. Given the entertainment district's known dangers, he decided it would be safer to continue the search alone. Before he could move, a sudden shout cut through his resolve. accompanied by a firm grasp on his arm. Brazio Bardre, surrounded by his entourage, imperiously demanded a second-floor seat. Whispers among the patrons recounted his boorish behavior, from harassing girls to throwing glasses in a rage. A nervous server informed him the establishment was entirely booked, holding a tray with mugs. Brazio's face contorted in disbelief and fury at the unheard-of news of no available seating. Brazio Bardre, enraged by the lack of seating, arrogantly demanded the server create space, threatening them with his family's influence. A trembling server apologized profusely while Charl, nearby, observed the disturbance. From his vantage, Silva confirmed this was indeed the scumbags from the unsettling rumors. Brazio stood enraged over the server, disparaging him as utterly useless. His anger still simmering, Brazio declared he would simply take his business elsewhere. Silva paused, catching a sudden exclamation from behind them. A new voice then called out, wondering aloud if it was Charl they were seeing. Brazio, indeed, stood before them, now pointing directly at her, recognizing Lady Charl Orlando. Brazio, recognizing Charl, tried to jog her memory about a previous social gathering. Charl's brow furrowed, a faint sweat drop betraying her uncertainty. She softly admitted that she couldn't recall their meeting. His expression twisted into a furious scowl, indignant at her lack of recollection. Brazio leered, vowing to ensure she would remember him plenty from now on. Brazio's defiant snarl quickly contorted into pure, wide-eyed terror as Silva met his gaze with an unnerving, knowing calm. Brazio, undeterred by Charl's lack of recognition, continued his brazen attempts to flatter and lure her away to a finer establishment. Her quiet, firm, not interested cut through his flattery, leaving no room for negotiation. Watching his favorite hero so shamelessly propositioned, Silva's internal fury surged, finding Brazio's gall unforgivable. Brazio persisted, pivoting to an offer of luxurious fruit juices and other treats since Charl was underage. Charl, however, remained completely unmoved, firmly repeating her disinterest. Her unwavering dismissal ignited a fresh wave of contempt in Brazio, who seethed at her insolence. Brazio's questioning finger pointed directly at Silva, wondering if he was Charl's bodyguard. Undeterred, Brazio shifted tactics, offering luxurious fruit juices and other treats suitable for her age. Yet Charl remained completely unmoved, her steadfast disinterest palpable. Her unwavering dismissal ignited a fresh wave of contempt in Brazio, who seethed at her insolence. Suddenly, Silva pointed a thumb to his chest, declaring he was indeed Lady Charl's bodyguard. A blush rising to her cheeks, Charl confirmed his statement, echoing that he was her protector. With this official declaration, he now had every incentive to shield Charl from any further attempt. Ignoring his fury, Brazio persisted, brazenly attempting to entice her with promises of a finer establishment. Her quiet yet firm refusal, not interested, left no room for further negotiation. Witnessing his beloved hero so shamelessly propositioned, an undeniable fury surged through Silva. Brazio erupted in a loud, dismissive laugh, scoffing at the idea of Silva, a mere mob, protecting a noble. A chilling, serene smile spread across Silva's face as he quietly contemplated decapitating his tormentor. Brazio then turned to Charl, subtly insulting her family by questioning their need for such a bodyguard. With a condescending smirk, he offered Charl one of his own bodyguards, clearly intending to humiliate Silva further. Watching Charl look downcast, Silva's heart ached with guilt, realizing she was being publicly mocked because of him. The Jason Manamores, Bowles, Marielle F. Quay, Marielle LL, Marielle L. Panel M. Balls. 1. Text. Brazio gestured wildly to his imposing retinue, boasting of their elite Holy Knight origins. Tie, W. Panel Index. 2. Text. He then challenged them, questioning if his hand-picked guards weren't perfectly suited for him. Bahal. Index. 3. Text. Silva felt a pang of disappointment, realizing these former knights had seemingly sold their honor to such a man. TEI, TIA Panel Index 4, text. A disheartened Charl, her head bowed, quietly suggested they leave. Brazio cackled wildly, openly scoffing at the notion of Silva, that wimpy bodyguard, protecting anyone. Charl, however, tilted her head, a quiet smirk playing on her lips as she suggested he was sorely mistaken. With a confident wink, she declared his so-called elite bodyguards couldn't even hold a candle to Silva's true strength. Charl, with a blush, apologized for her earlier teasing, confessing that Brazio's insults towards Silva had deeply angered her. Silva, however, harbored a flicker of doubt, wondering if openly provoking such a powerful foe had been wise. A menacing voice broke his thoughts as Brazio, with a chilling smile, asked if they needed something from him. The bodyguard, with a smug expression, declared they intended to test Charl's bold claims. He narrowed his eyes, challenging Silva directly. Silva, internally pleased, recognized this as a perfect opportunity to gauge Brazio's potential impact on the plot. Charl, however, appeared hesitant, looking to him with concern. Despite her worry, Silva confidently affirmed their challenge, and the bodyguard smirked, accepting their terms. A sharp eek and a grunt signaled the swift defeat of Brazio's bodyguards. Silva, cracking his knuckles with a quiet, "Okay," prompted the cowering guards to reveal all they knew about Brazio's misdeeds. The city walls loomed, a silent witness to the confessions unfolding. A shroud of darkness fell, marking the depth of the revealed corruption. Silva processed the grim details of counterfeit drugs, blackmail, and physical assault, affirming Brazio was truly a scumbag. Yet, with a bloodied nose and grimace, one guard whispered, "That's not all." The cowering guard revealed Brazio's insidious plan to infiltrate the Night Order and corrupt it from within. Such a profound deviation from the game's timeline, threatening the entire nation, demanded he intervene at all costs. Looking intently at the defeated guards, Silva assured them their public loss would remain a private secret. He instructed them to leave, spread the lie of an easy victory to their master, and never breathe a word of the true events. Charl, still captivated by his previous display of power, called out to Silva, asking how he had grown so incredibly strong. Her eyes wide, she pointed out that a normal soldier simply couldn't take down demons with such effortless grace. He offered a strained smile, casually attributing his prowess to years of solitary training in the wilderness, which only piqued her curiosity further. As Charl wondered if she could also become stronger, Silva inwardly recoiled at the thought, remembering the brutal, monster-infested days that nearly broke him. Silva offered a confident, reassuring smile, telling Charl he would stake his life on it. Her anxious expression softened into a trusting smile, accepting his solemn word. As they walked away, she, now feeling hungry, suggested they find another place for a treat. He readily agreed, knowing his duty as an otaku's was to sponsor his favorite hero. A quiet moment passed under the city's evening sky. The 107th Night Order entrance exam began with an announcement of its first test, one-on-one mock battles decided by drawn lots. Silva, clenching his fist, inwardly vowed he had to stop Brazio from turning the revered order into his personal plaything. Suddenly, a familiar sneering voice broke through the crowd. "Aren't you that pathetic bodyguard from back then?" Brazio then eyed him skeptically, questioning how someone supposedly beaten so severely could look so unscathed. Silva offered a slight smile, mentioning his newly acquired healing potions had cost him a pretty penny, which Brazio quickly interpreted as proof of his poverty. Brazio then loudly declared his opulence, proudly showcasing his top-grade armor infused with rare orichalcum as a voice officially called their names. With the announcement echoing, both were directed to the very center of the training grounds, their impending mock battle now imminent. Brazio's maniacal laughter echoed, proclaiming Silva had the worst luck imaginable now that they were opponents. With a chilling grin, he then casually asked the examiner if accidental fatalities led to disqualification. He feigned relief at the answer, scoffing at Silva as a background extra who just got a lucky break. As the command to begin sounded, Brazio's eyes glinted with malevolent anticipation. He surged forward, blade raised high, roaring his intent to attack. Silva's swift flick sent his opponent's weapon spinning from his grasp. Brazio cried out in shock and indignation as his sword clattered uselessly to the ground. Even disarmed and sprawled, he shamelessly boasted that the fight would have been his, if not for a mere slip. A weary smile touched Silva's lips at the other man's tiresome denial. He had carefully considered his move, knowing a full blow would be lethal while a pulled punch would be ineffective against such armor. Silva just watched, amused, as Brazio, bewildered, demanded to know why he wasn't pressing his attack. Silva, with a challenging gaze, offered Brazio a chance to recover, noting the first move was his, but the next belonged to the disarmed noble. Brazio sputtered in confusion as Silva's smirk widened, hinting at a numbing pain that prevented proper movement. The realization hit Brazio with a jolt, his face contorting in pained shock from the lingering impact. With a resounding push, he was sent hurtling backward across the training grounds. Silva casually commented on Brazio's fall, while the latter desperately clung to his excuse of tripping. Brazio, enraged, scoffed that he had only survived by dumb luck, claiming he hadn't even used his full power. Silva just smiled subtly, observing the onlookers as he let Brazio stew. Deciding he had humored the noble long enough, Silva prepared to end the mockery. Silva's body pulsed with the familiar surge of mana, an energy he had rigorously mastered. Mana, the energy of one's inner spirit, could be channeled into a blade to slice through steel or wrapped around the body as unyielding armor. Yet, despite its power, the vast majority of people live their entire lives never sensing this extraordinary force within themselves. To stand against formidable demons whose bodies far surpassed human strength, mastering mana was an absolute necessity for any aspiring hero. Disarmed and sprawled on the ground, Brazio stared up at Silva's imposing silhouette, internally acknowledging the futility of fighting such armor bare-handed. A calm, knowing smile played on Silva's lips as he pointed, asking if Brazio's opulent armor was indeed forged from orichalcum. Brazio flinched, a cold sweat beading on his brow as he registered a chilling, unexpected shift in his opponent's demeanor. The air crackled with palpable pressure as Silva, his presence now radiating an intimidating power, slowly advanced across the training grounds. Silva's smirk deepened as he clarified his intent. He was indeed attacking Brazio. He then gestured, subtly reminding his opponent that a true resolution required a fight. Panicked, Brazio accused him of intent to kill, attempting to deflect with insults about a bottom-tier nobles. Hearing bottom-tier nobles seemed to ignite a dangerous flicker in Silva's eyes. Brazio, clutching his sword, stammered a hesitant yes, unnerved by Silva's sudden shift in demeanor and his pointed question about Charl. "I'll pay you anything, just please," he begged, trying to avert a truly dire outcome. His eyes, now burning with an unsettling intensity, made Brazio fear for his very life. In a desperate gamble, Brazio suddenly offered to buy him off, pleading to be hired with his family's wealth. Brazio, desperate, promised Silva more wealth than Charl could ever offer if he would just lose this fight. Unmoved, Silva advanced, pressing the choice. Was it money or Charl he truly valued? His eyes narrowed dangerously as he warned Brazio not to move if he valued his life. Brazio, desperate, continued to demean Charl, claiming there were countless women far superior to her. "So just?" Silva's enraged voice cut him off with a chilling command to shut you up. A single tear of fury or intense emotion glistened in his now terrifyingly narrowed eye. "Don't ever say her name again," he seethed, his voice thick with a promise of retribution. The training ground pulsed as Silva initiated his Zalencia sword style. With a furious roar, he unleashed the devastating shirataki technique. The overwhelming strike sent Brazio hurtling backward from the sheer impact. Suddenly, a furious roar filled the air as Silva unleashed his devastating shirataki technique, sending Brazio hurtling backward in stunned disbelief. Brazio, sprawled on the ground, could only stare as his supposedly invincible orichalcum greaves splintered into pieces. Silva, towering over him, quietly confirmed the noble surrender, the battle decisively over. A weary breath escaped him. The mission was complete, and he just needed to report to Elda to finally put this whole ordeal behind him. The referee's voice boomed across the training grounds, finally announcing, "The winner is—" A joyful blush spread across Charl's face as she proudly called out his name, "Silva!" Silva stood, suddenly plagued by a familiar, sinking feeling as the dust settled around him. A chill ran down his spine as he wondered if, once again, he had revealed far too much of his true power. Kaguya's knowing smile widened as she playfully dangled a chibi Silva by his collar, clearly aware of his latest attempts to hide his remarkable strength. Elda, gracefully seated, confirmed their success in preventing Brazio's entry into the order. Her serene smile deepened as she offered him her thanks once more. However, Elda's expression sharpened as she vowed to gather solid proof of Brazio's unforgivable deeds and see him jailed. Silva, with a confident smile, assured her he was counting on her to do so. Yet his gaze grew firm as he subtly reminded her of their previous promise regarding Brazio's insult to Charl. Elda affirmed she would no longer press him to join the Knights, acknowledging his crucial role in Brazio's downfall. Overjoyed, he beamed, believing his tranquil life was finally within reach again. Yet Elda's expression subtly shifted as she reiterated her question about his firm refusal. He responded with unwavering conviction, confirming his absolute disinterest. A pained groan escaped her lips, leaving Silva utterly baffled by her sudden distress. Tears welled in her eyes, but he, oblivious, remained steadfast in his declaration. Elda, slamming her fists, erupted in a vehement protest, demanding he join her as a knight despite her previous promise. She sniffled, tearfully conceding she must keep her word. Baffled by her dramatic spoiled brat display, Silva gently offered her a handkerchief. Elda, still sniffling, gratefully accepted the handkerchief Silva offered, promising to return it. Yet whispers followed him, surprised that the subject of so much talk seemed so unassuming. His focus was broken as he overheard knights discussing another demon sighting. A chill ran down his spine. It was the third such report this month. A grim silence settled over him as he processed the troubling news. As he left the building, Silva received a formal request to continue his diligent work as a gate guard despite his internal groan. Walking through the city, he resolved to lay low, hoping to fade back into the background. Unbeknownst to him, passers-by noted how much he truly looked like an ordinary mob character. Silva grimaced, troubled by the recent surge in demon activity, suspecting it heralded the main story's early arrival. His frustration grew, realizing he had drawn unwanted attention to himself at this critical juncture. Clutching his sword, he silently hoped his actions wouldn't irrevocably derail the original plot. Even with Alan, the destined protagonist, supposedly ensuring a happy ending, he couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that fate was now unusually malleable. A profound uncertainty settled over him, hinting at an unforeseen path ahead. Silva's ears twitched, catching an unsettling sound in the distance. A sudden bam reverberated through the air, making him flinch. Then, a powerful force whooshed past him, striking the ground with immense speed. A sizzle of energy made him raise a hand to his mouth, a chilling realization dawning on him. He recognized that knowing, playful smile, it could only be Kaguya. An imposing figure descended with a playful flourish, her voice confirming, "There you are." Her knowing smile broadened as she looked down at him, a special-grade hero named Kaguya. Amidst chattering onlookers, the dazzling special-grade hero Kaguya approached the unsuspecting Silva. Her playful smile broadened as she declared she had been searching for him for what felt like forever. Internally vowing to minimize contact with main characters, Silva tried to subtly sneak away, but Kaguya's voice sweetly called him "darling." A bead of sweat trickled down his temple as panic flared in his chest, realizing his escape was futile. Before he could truly react, she enveloped him in a tight hug from behind, jokingly chiding him for abandoning his dear wife. Silva knew Kaguya was a rare, non-standard being, the sole hero granted the title of Special Grade, and a formidable love interest from his game. Her true nature, however, was far more terrifying, a monstrous fighter exceptionally good at magic, who could rip powerful demons apart with a laugh, making her humanity's ultimate trump card. He knew Kaguya was a true monster in battle, just like Elda, and both were unsettlingly aware of his true abilities. Her intense fixation had only grown since learning his secrets, despite the game's original narrative pointing to Alan as her destined partner. Yet, she simply beamed, declaring their meeting a matter of fate. Silva, anxious, acknowledged the recent surge in demon sightings. He suggested Kaguya prioritize her hero's duties, given the escalating threat. Her knowing smile, however, revealed she found his company far more charming than any duty. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple as he questioned her commitment as a special-grade hero. Kaguya, floating with a playful flourish, cheerfully asserted her right to be with him as his wife, much to Silva's bewildered protest. She then pressed him excitedly about their wedding ceremony, though he internally groaned about her unwavering conviction, admitting a part of him found her offer tempting. Suddenly, Kaguya grabbed his hand, enthusiastically suggesting a romantic tea date at an interesting cafe. He continued to protest that they weren't married as she effortlessly whisked him away through the city. The imposing towers of the Holy Knights Order, HQ, stood vigil over the city. Inside, Elda grimaced, her thoughts consumed by a cursed demon that continued to elude them. Her brow furrowed in frustration, realizing her holy knights had failed yet again to catch the elusive creature. "Damn it all," she muttered, rising sharply from her desk, her determination palpable. She slumped against a wall, lamenting that if only Silva were with them, they might have turned the tide. Her gaze softened slightly, a silent plea forming as she whispered his name. "Silva." Elda gazed out the window, a thoughtful expression on her face. The handkerchief he had offered lay neatly folded before her. She looked down, a silent reflection crossing her mind. Her eyes narrowed slightly as a thought echoed, "He's a strange guy." Despite her current predicament, she couldn't help but feel a strange sense of expectation toward him. A desperate knight's cry pierced the chaotic scene. "They got the hero!" That worst possible statement echoed on the battlefield, entirely understandable with the overwhelming numbers of enemies surrounding them. With a determined shout, Kaguya ordered everyone to fall back, declaring she would try to buy them precious time. Elda, injured but resolute, vowed to minimize the mounting damage as Kaguya had finally been called. Her eyes burned with fierce determination, yet she wondered how much longer her wounded body could endure. Surrounded by surging demons, she knew Kaguya's arrival was still moments away. With a powerful swing, she resolved to tirelessly reduce their monstrous numbers until reinforcements could finally arrive. Elda, though injured, knew she could still overcome mere Level 1 demons. However, confronting an overwhelming force of Level 2 demons was proven to be a formidable task. A pained groan escaped her lips as her body struggled under the relentless assault. Elda, her wounds throbbing, met the demon's stab with a furious, defiant swing. Her blade then surged with a fierce glow, reflecting the unyielding fire in her eyes. She roared her refusal to sacrifice herself for nothing, her resolve unwavering amidst the chaos. Elda lunged, unleashing a powerful attack, urging her foe to eat this. The horned demon, however, swiftly dodged her strike, its eyes gleaming. A chilling grin spread across its features, mocking her efforts and those of her knights. "Darn it!" she cried, knowing her comrades were nearby as she dashed through the chaos. The horned demon lunged forward with malicious intent. "Not so fast!" Elda cried, her eyes wide with fierce determination. Amidst the knights who cowered in fear, her defiant voice cut through the chaos. Amidst the terrified knights, a mysterious man stood, his unwavering gaze locked on the approaching demon. He wore no silver armor, the gleaming symbol of their revered order. Instead, he was merely clad in sturdy shoes and battered steel, utterly unbefitting a hero. Silva, far from the escalating conflict, fretted that the true main story had barely begun, yet events were already wildly off track. Meanwhile, on the chaotic front, a shocked Elda could only manage a choked Rue as the unarmored man defiantly faced the encroaching demon. Unfazed by the encroaching demon, the young hero Alan swung his blade with an unintelligible cry, a powerful slash following his casual declaration that none of this would truly matter. A blinding flash of energy erupted as his blade found its mark. Elda could only gaze in wide-eyed disbelief, yet Kaguya's smile only deepened, finding an unexpected beauty in the hero's powerful form. Elda admitted she had incessantly asked him to join the Holy Knight's Order ever since that day. Her determined efforts to recruit him, despite his clear reluctance, had been a continuous struggle. Yet, he had always steadfastly refused her every persuasive attempt. He might deny it himself, but a profound strength truly lay beneath his unassuming exterior. Without a shadow of a doubt, she knew his potential was immeasurable. Silva's eyes widened in shock, oblivious to Elda's inner conviction that his power was a gift meant to protect their world. The next day dawned, bringing with it fresh concerns. A knight, surprised by her presence, greeted Elda at the attack scene. She immediately inquired about the situation's current state. He reported 2 victims and suspected a particularly cunning demon, noting the lack of traces. Elda acknowledged his findings, confirming they were prioritizing investigations while awaiting a hero. The knight grimly reported that both female victims had bite marks and their blood had been drained, leaving no traces. He suspected the demon responsible was likely over level 3, a formidable threat. Elda's face tightened with dread as the chilling details sunk in. A faint, nearly forgotten scar on her own neck seemed to throb in response to the grim report. The aftermath of the demon's brutal attack lay stark, with 2 more victims tragically fallen. Elda's frustration boiled over, demanding her knights go on high alert, and specifically summoning Silva to the Holy Knight's HQ for this escalating crisis. Kaguya beamed at Silva amidst the clanking of armored knights, signaling their new joint assignment. Her playful, darling phrase, anticipating their first task, drew a sharp, flustered protest from him. He groaned inwardly, recalling the previous day's difficulty with Kaguya, constantly at his heels. Now tasked with investigating the latest demon attack, Silva realized he was deeper in trouble than ever. The weight of his new mission settled heavily upon him, promising no easy escape. Kaguya settled in the foreground with a captivating smile, her presence radiating mischievous anticipation for their new assignment. Her playful gaze, almost a whisper of "darling," likely drew a familiar, flustered protest from the distant Silva. He, walking under the vast, starry expanse, already felt the mental exhaustion from her constant closeness yesterday. This latest investigation into a demon attack plunged him deeper into unwanted notoriety, far from his desired obscurity. Several hours prior, a grim discussion had unfolded. Silva, looking troubled, had uttered the unsettling word, vampire, to Elda. Elda confirmed it was a popular alias for the perpetrator of the recent demon attack. She detailed how 2 victims had been found, their blood completely drained, with bite marks on their necks. Such a chilling account left him pondering the next steps. Kaguya unexpectedly snuggled into Silva's side, leaving him utterly bewildered by her sudden presence. Her eyes twinkled mischievously as she nonchalantly declared her right to be wherever she pleased. A playful squeeze on his arm reinforced her point, much to his visible discomfort. She then tilted her head, pressing the issue with a knowing look that challenged his unspoken protests. A sudden thump marked Charl's furious demand for Kaguya to release Silva. Kaguya, appearing unperturbed, casually noted she was merely linking arms with him. Undaunted, Charl pushed with renewed vigor, repeating her insistent command. From her desk, Elda observed the commotion as Kaguya playfully chided the captain for interrupting her important discussion. Elda, with a resolute expression, firmly redirected the conversation back to the pressing matter at hand. They now faced an evolved blood bat demon, a shape-shifting level 3 threat whose location remained unknown. Silva grimly acknowledged the immense power of such a demon, capable of overwhelming even 10 skilled knights. With a pointed finger and unwavering gaze, Elda declared that this was his moment to shine. Silva, still trying to minimize his role, insisted he was merely a gate guard, only capable of minor errands. Elda, unfazed, granted him full independence for the investigation, citing the knight's current manpower deficit. The unexpected freedom to act independently registered in Silva's eyes, a notion both intriguing and unnerving. His thoughtful stare lingered, prompting a sharp query about its suspicious nature. He briefly considered asking a clarifying question, but then quickly dismissed the impulse. Silva's unwavering stare betrayed a silent query. "You don't have any ulterior motives, do you?" Elda, flustered, burst into nervous laughter, claiming no ulterior motives, then quickly revealed her true, elaborate plan to bring him into the Knight's Order. He simply observed that she had just blurted out all her quiet parts. Silva mused that a simple investigation, being an order, would usually be impossible to refuse. Standing before Elda, he formally accepted the new investigative assignment. Suddenly, Kaguya leaned in, boldly declaring she would accompany him on the mission, much to his surprise. Elda quickly protested that Kaguya's presence would complicate her careful scheme, but she simply clung to Silva, insisting she would go with him regardless. Elda, though slightly exasperated, conceded that they could use all the help Kaguya offered for the investigation. She then firmly instructed both Silva and Kaguya to attend the investigation meeting to be fully briefed. Later, the two approached a discreet door, knocking to announce their presence. Silva gently pushed the door open, politely excusing their intrusion, while Kaguya remained calmly by his side. As Silva and Kaguya entered the room, he immediately picked up on the hushed whispers questioning his identity. Knights around them openly wondered if the man was just a soldier and who the mysterious woman accompanying him could be. Kaguya merely smiled, her composed demeanor fueling the speculation about Captain Elda's peculiar orders for a special-grade hero. Their every step was met with persistent murmurs and curious glances, making their presence impossible to ignore. Kaguya, with a calm smile, asked to be seated. The knight, visibly flustered, eagerly assented. As she settled, a soft "Pardon me," accompanied his deepening blush. A sly smile touched her lips, confirming they were indeed quite conspicuous. Soon after, the urgent meeting regarding the vampire attack formally began. The knights began organizing what they knew, confirming 2 victims in their 20s found in the capital's northern district. One knight cursed the wretched demons, while Silva internally noted this specific attack case never occurred in the original story. He reasoned that since this incident was off-script, the main characters wouldn't be involved, and it would likely resolve itself without their intervention. A wave of relief washed over Silva at the thought of avoiding further entanglement with the timeline. Silva pondered the new night patrol orders for the Eastern Gate, a joint task with Kaguya. With a determined grin, he prepared to begin their investigation. He turned to Kaguya, surprised to find her still deeply asleep. A sigh of exasperation escaped him at her continued slumber. He paused, a subtle shift in his expression as he considered their next move. Silva found himself standing awkwardly beside a towering knight, waiting for instructions. How may I help you?" he stammered, offering a strained smile. The knight's stern gaze pierced him, demanding to know his assigned group. With a subtle smirk, Silva stated his assignment was the Guard Regiment of the Eastern Gate. The knight erupted in disbelief, wondering aloud why Captain Elda would pair the special-grade hero with a mere soldier. A knight from the Second Holy Knight's Order loudly demanded Kaguya team up with them, trying to claim her for their ranks. Silva, however, immediately recognized this as a transparent attempt to steal credit from Elda. He firmly stated that such a decision was beyond the knight's authority to make. The knight bristled, angrily questioning his impudence. Dismissing him as a mere soldier, the knight then imperiously ordered Silva to withdraw from the investigation entirely. Silva calmly explained he had received direct orders from the First Holy Knight's captain. A nearby comrade hesitantly suggested his leader was going too far. A large knight from the Second Order aggressively grabbed his collar, loudly dismissing any authority from the First. His grip tightened menacingly, fueled by a clear desire to usurp command. The large knight aggressively held Silva's collar, loudly declaring their order's superiority. His trembling subordinates frantically warned him to look behind. Confused, the knight started to dismiss their pleas. Behind him, Silva offered a quiet, unnerving command to silence himself. Kaguya's enraged gaze fixed on the offending knight, utterly furious that he dared to lay a hand on her. "Darling!" Silva quickly interjected, trying to calm her growing rage by insisting he was perfectly fine. Nevertheless, dark, swirling power began to gather menacingly around a tightly clenched fist. Silva's eyes widened in alarm, realizing Kaguya's volatile power was about to erupt. With a sudden lunge, he desperately tried to intervene, pulling her back before she could unleash her fury. The knight was suddenly flung backward, armor clattering with a loud thunk. He hurtled through the air, powerless to stop his swift retreat. With an unwavering gaze, Kaguya extended her hand, warning everyone to stay back. The knight clattered to the ground, a crumpled heap, as his terrified comrades watched in shock. Kaguya, unperturbed, offered a dangerously sweet smile, condemning the knight for daring to touch her husband. Silva could only stare at her, thinking that she had truly gone too far this time. She then impishly stuck out her tongue, lightly apologizing for her inability to hold back. Silva, utterly exasperated, wondered if a special-grade hero should be so openly flippant after such an outburst. The aggressive knight clattered to the ground, a crumpled heap before his terrified comrades. Kaguya, unperturbed, then offered a dangerously sweet smile, condemning his audacity to touch her husband. Silva stared in stunned silence, realizing she had gone far beyond what was necessary. With an impish stick of her tongue, Kaguya lightly apologized for her inability to hold back. An exasperated Silva inwardly wondered if a special-grade hero should be quite so flippant after such a display of power. With a smug smile, she leaned in closer, demanding praise for her protective actions. Silva let out a quiet "ugh" of utter exhaustion. Kaguya, however, simply smiled, noting the doubt etched clearly upon his face. She leaned in closer, assuring him her affections were genuine, born from his protective nature and the sheer joy she found in teasing him. Most of all, she adored the immense, hidden strength he so carefully concealed from the world. Kaguya playfully poked Silva's cheek, expressing her desire to one day witness his full, unbridled power. He quietly dismissed her wish, doubting such an opportunity would ever arise. Her lips curved into a knowing smile, hinting at her unwavering belief. Floating lightly, she then declared that true strength always came with an inherent weight of responsibility. Silva pondered her words, a thoughtful responsibilities echoing in his mind. Kaguya gazed skyward, her voice soft as she called his name, noting the moon's breathtaking beauty this night. His own eyes, reflecting the ethereal glow, followed her gaze, lost in thought. Kaguya, still gazing at the moon, followed up Silva's agreement by wondering if that's where they truly originated. Silva, looking surprised, then questioned aloud where such an idea could have even begun. She then softly began, a new, more profound question forming on her lips. Hypothetically, she continued, her gaze turning serious, if I were to say that I was born from the moon, she turned to him, her eyes searching, and simply asked, would you believe me? Silva reflects on his knowledge of Kaguya's true nature, recalling the dark truth of her origins. She had been chosen as a vessel, a child subjected to secretive research designed to harvest magic from the moon. This potent moon magic had transformed young Kaguya into the world's strongest, but at a terrible cost, as sorrowful sobs echoed. A gentle smile spread across his face, his answer ready and unwavering after her profound question. Her eyes widened in surprise, then softened with an undeniable belief as she softly declared, yes, I would. Kaguya, beaming with a triumphant smile, chuckled as Silva confirmed his belief. A soft blush rose to her cheeks as she whispered her gratitude. Silva then explained that the idea of her coming from the moon simply made it all the more romantic. She stared back, a flicker of surprise in her wide eyes. A gentle blush returned as she repeated the word, clearly taken aback. Charl couldn't help but notice his rare moment of sheepishness, finding it endearing. Silva comically wondered if her constant teasing, especially with such terms, might constitute emotional abuse, quickly reminding her she wasn't his spouse. Still, that word felt stubbornly misplaced in his mind, causing a subtle agitation. A brief silence fell between them as they stood apart, both lost in their own thoughts. Suddenly, a strange, unsettling scent caught his attention, pulling him from his musings. Silva looked at Kaguya, acknowledging her as she calmly responded to his query. Suddenly, a piercing scream ripped through the night, causing him to instinctively grab her hand. He then dashed off instantly, his form a blur as he raced toward the source of the cry. Kaguya, now alone, intently registered the unsettling scent, recognizing its true nature. A grim understanding dawned upon Silva as he sped onward, his expression taut with worry. A low growl echoed as Kaguya carried the unconscious Silva, confirming the chilling, filthy scent of demons. Jolted awake, Silva shouted a warning at the sinister hooded figure looming nearby. The menacing figure had been about to strike at him directly. With a powerful dash, he swiftly drew his blade and lunged. A terrifying hooded figure loomed over Kaguya, but Silva was already mid-leap, his blade drawn. His eyes widened in alarm as he realized the true peril she faced. Barely evading a sweeping blow from the menacing scythe, he cursed the demon's speed. With a grunt, he landed, quickly squaring his stance to face the immediate threat head-on. Turning swiftly from the vanished foe, he knelt anxiously beside Kaguya, urgently calling out her name to rouse her. Kneeling over the fallen woman, Silva felt a surge of relief that she was still breathing. He then looked up, instructing Kaguya to escort the victim to the medical office while he pursued the demon. Kaguya, with a concerned gaze, questioned if he could manage alone, but then confidently declared she would handle her part. Silva, with a resolute expression, assured her not to worry about him. Silva activated his magical enhancement, resolute in his next move. With a powerful surge, he launched himself into the night sky. He soared above the city rooftops, racing towards his destination under the pale moonlight. His eyes sharpened, instantly pinpointing the demon's exact location. The winged demon attempted to flee into the night, but Silva would not allow it. With a decisive hop and dash, he exploded into pursuit, shouting for it to stop. His teeth gritted in a determined snarl, focusing entirely on the chase. Leaping powerfully across the rooftops, he relentlessly closed the distance. Suddenly, a flurry of dark wings enveloped Silva. His eyes widened in recognition as he realized he was facing a terrifying horde of bloodbats. Silva, now enveloped by a swirling multitude of winged creatures, grimly wondered if the demon could command its own minions. With a frustrated grunt, he unleashed a powerful lunge, carving a path through the suffocating swarm. His annoyance grew, realizing the sheer nuisance of these countless foes. Yet, he stood firm amidst the onslaught, poised for his next decisive move. Closing his eyes for a moment, he focused his entire being on the formidable Zalencia sword style. As the bloodbat horde swirled, a terrifying hooded figure lunged, emerging from the darkness. Silva landed low, his eyes burning with defiance as he declared, "I caught up to you." The razor-sharp blade flashed past his face, a chilling testament to the demon's speed. With a powerful wild thrust, its menacing scythe sliced through the air, aimed directly at him. Silva declared his presence, deflecting the hooded demon's swift scythe attack amidst the swirling bloodbats. Annoyed by the relentless swarm, he gritted his teeth as the scythe passed dangerously close. Yet the nimble demon abruptly darted into the night, prompting him to yell, "Wait!" With a newfound resolve, and his blade now glowing, he knew what he had to do next. Silva sharply dodged the broad, sweeping strike, an anguished cry echoing nearby. Gritting his teeth, he pushed past the pain, his resolve hardening against the relentless foe. The hooded demon then launched a shadowy, piercing attack, its bat minions swirling menacingly around its form. The demon's dark silhouette vanished into the vast moonlight, leaving only the memory of a fierce battle. "He got away, huh?" Silva sighed, looking up at the retreating form against the luminous orb. With his own blade now in hand, its tip rested momentarily upon the cold ground. His eyes narrowed, a silent resolve blooming within him. An unexpected stillness descended upon the quiet city night. The quiet clinic stood as a solitary beacon in the city's late hours. Inside, Kaguya calmly reported saving a life, while a crestfallen Silva apologized for letting the demon escape, prompting her playful inquiry about his empty-handed return and injuries. Silva, looking away, regretfully admitted his solo pursuit was a mistake, as she, seeing he was unharmed, expressed her relief. With a kind expression, she then gently advised him not to be so hard on himself. Kaguya, ever perceptive, suggested the fragment Silva held could be a vital lead, adding that if the demon eluded him, it was truly beyond anyone else's reach. His eyes filled with renewed resolve, Silva declared he would surely catch it next time. Seeing his determination, Kaguya beamed, observing his rekindled motivation with delight. Flustered by her affectionate teasing, Silva quietly urged her to stop, admitting her praise was lovely. The city's search for the elusive demons yielded no results, leaving Silva to ponder how to prevent further casualties. His only real lead, a blood-stained piece of cloth, offered a slim hope of tracking them. Kaguya, with her serene and knowing gaze, might just be the key to this desperate plan. Turning to her, Silva presented the cloth, admitting they had no choice but to try this long shot. Silva turned to Kaguya, recalling her previous claim that she could identify the scent of demons. He presented her with the blood-stained cloth, hoping she could use that unique aroma to track them. Kaguya admitted she was indeed sensitive to their scent, but Silva's eager comment about her sharp nose brought a faint smile to her lips. She playfully reminded him, however, that her nose wasn't keen enough to function like a hound's. His hopeful plan dashed, Silva slumped in disappointment, lamenting his failed brainstorm. Yet her expression shifted, a new idea forming as she paused before speaking. With a mischievous smile, Kaguya vowed to fulfill his every wish as his wife, even offering to transform into a cat or dog for him. Startled, Silva frantically pushed her away, apologizing profusely as she continued her outrageous promises. Just then, a sharp, familiar voice pierced the tense air, loudly calling his name. A familiar voice revealed Charl's sudden presence, causing Silva to exclaim in surprise, while Kaguya calmly noted she had been looking for him. She humbly brushed off his compliments, insisting she was not that amazing. Charl, standing tall, then proudly announced she had aced her written tests. Her cheeks flushed, she then confessed she wanted him to praise her. Silva responded with a beaming smile and a thumbs up, calling her achievement incredible. Charl, with a startled expression, began to speak. Kaguya, with a mischievous smile, asked who the young lady was, and Charl promptly introduced herself. Standing close to Silva, she proudly declared herself his friend. A subtle skepticism crossed Kaguya's face as she acknowledged the statement and introduced herself in return. Charl's eyes widened in recognition, asking if she was indeed the special-grade hero, Kaguya. Charl's voice, full of awe, asked if she was indeed the renowned special-grade hero. With a faint smile, Kaguya then leaned in, preparing to speak further. Kaguya, acknowledging her fame, noted Charl must recognize her as a student from the Heroes Academy. Silva internally marveled at Charl's courage, while Kaguya confirmed she, too, knew of her. Kaguya privately mused on the unlikelihood of this interaction, impressed by Charl's composure despite her own heroic status. Charl expressed her deep honor, while Kaguya affirmed her potential, making Silva quietly recognize the rare gravity of their meeting. Charl, hesitant but determined, finally asked Kaguya about her relationship with Silva. A wave of dread washed over him as he realized Charl was now inadvertently caught in Kaguya's playful yet intense rivalry for his affection. With a dramatic flourish and a mischievous sparkle in her eyes, Kaguya proudly declared herself his most fragile, demure, and beautiful wife. The innocent question, "Wife?" escaped Cheryl's lips as a profound look of shock and dismay washed over her face. Realizing Cheryl's dismay, Sylvan knew he had to quickly dispel Kaguya's outlandish claim. "She's just a friend," he stammered, clarifying they were merely business partners despite Kaguya's knowing gaze. He quickly explained their joint patrols were due to the recent vampire attack case, trying to make the situation sound purely professional. Charl, now aware of the escalating vampire case, eagerly offered her assistance. Kaguya's sweet smile hid a hint of mockery as she questioned what Sylva's friend could possibly do. With a determined pout, Charl insisted she could be helpful too, despite Kaguya's subtle jabs. Suddenly, a sharp clap echoed, cutting through the tension. Then, a blinding glow erupted as a voice declared, "The Master has come forth, revealing ominous, floating figures." A blinding magical light swelled, manifesting a colossal wolf-like figure. The woman, a newcomer, excitedly heralded the summoned creature as the Fenrir wolf. Kaguya observed the display, intrigued by the powerful summoning spell before them. The newly arrived woman explained that her elemental magic granted her the power to call contracted spirits whenever needed. She affectionately introduced her wolf spirit as Fenrir, though she called him Riru for short, as he playfully licked her cheek. Silva remarked on the cute name, while the woman further elaborated on elemental magic being an omnipotent skill useful for both combat and exploration. The large wolf spirit, Riru, let out a gentle woof. "A curious?" escaped Silva's lips, his expression one of mild surprise. Charl explained Riru had been by her side since childhood, and Kaguya observed in surprise that the spirit rarely warmed to anyone else. Silva pondered, recalling how even the game's protagonist, Alan, only earned Riru's trust after immense effort. Yet, with a gentle touch, he easily stroked the happy wolf's soft fur. Overwhelmed by its undeniable cuteness, Silva continued to lovingly rub the spirit. Kaguya then chuckled, noting how Riru had completely rolled onto its back, exposing its belly for more pats. The mighty Fenrir wolf growled fiercely, guarding its master as Kaguya cautiously approached. Kaguya looked stunned and slightly affronted, noting how unusually rude the spirit was for not accepting her. Charl then smiled knowingly, explaining that such behavior was typical for the wolf, making Silva's easy acceptance quite the exception. Charl explained that Riru could easily sniff out and track demon scents, making finding them an effortless task once a clue was given. Hope surged through Silva as he immediately asked if the wolf could follow the demon using the scent on the blood-stained cloth. Riru eagerly sniffed the fabric, letting out a decisive woof as Charl gave her spirit companion the command to proceed. Its keen nose twitched, eyes suddenly wide and focused as it locked onto an invisible trail. With two determined nods, Riru confirmed it had indeed found something, much to Charl's excited observation. The large wolf spirit let out another joyous woof, clearly eager to begin the hunt. Silva looked between Charl and Kaguya, a clear resolve hardening his gaze. Both women affirmed his unspoken command, their expressions equally determined. With a surge of energy, Silva declared they were chasing the demon, ready to move. The trio finally arrived at a decrepit old house, its dark silhouette ominous against the moonlit night. Riru, the powerful spirit wolf, led Silva, Charl, and Kaguya closer, its instincts guiding their hunt. The spirit wolf let out an eager bark, its excitement signaling a strong scent. Charl, ever observant, then wondered if a smaller, less obvious entrance was hidden nearby. Kaguya, with a sly, calculating smile, suggested they should all infiltrate the mysterious structure together. Silva firmly directed Kaguya to stay with Riru outside, stating that only he and Charl would enter. With a worried expression, Kaguya pressed if they would truly be safe going in alone. She then playfully reminded him of how the demon had previously escaped his grasp despite his power. Silva met her gaze with a knowing smile, explaining that was precisely why he needed her to remain outside. Silva clarified that Charl and Riru needed to go inside, while someone had to remain on guard outside. He then pointed out Kaguya's weakness in close-quarters combat. She admitted with a soft blush that he knew her too well. Despite his practical reasoning, Kaguya ecstatically embraced him, playfully asking if this was love, to which he quickly denied. Kaguya, with a triumphant and playful grin, declared she would follow his instructions, responding to his love. Silva offered a reassuring smile, promising that no single bug would escape their grasp. He then turned to Charlie, who stood a little flustered, to give her further instructions. With a happy pant, Riru eagerly confirmed its readiness to take the lead. Riru let out another excited bark, prompting Silva to bend down. He affirmed the spirit wolf's eagerness with a warm smile, trusting its instincts. Turning to a slightly flustered Charlie, he instructed her to stay close behind him. With a firm grip on his blade and a determined gaze, he signaled their departure. Together, the two entered the decrepit house, Riru leading them further into the shadowy unknown. Their footsteps echoed softly on the worn wooden floor, leading deeper into the house's gloom. Silva and Riru gazed ahead, their senses acutely focused on a subtle disturbance. A sudden thump broke the tense silence as Charl stumbled, her foot catching on something unseen. He turned with a concerned glance towards a flustered Charl, who clutched herself awkwardly. Blushing deeply, she admitted she had gotten a bit scared, apologizing for the noise. Silva felt his heart race as he registered her quiet confession of fear. He understood Charl's anxiety, knowing she was still just a student at the Heroes Academy, but his own heart hammered. As she nervously squeezed her uniform, he couldn't help but wonder if this moment with his favorite heroine was truly real. Riru, tensing its body, let out a sharp, urgent bark deep within the house. Silva's brow furrowed in concern, quickly asking what was wrong with the spirit wolf. The wolf looked up, barking repeatedly at something unseen in the shadows. A grim realization dawned on Silva. The demon was undoubtedly nearby. Turning to Charl, he instructed her to stand back, and she quietly assented. Silva's eyes widened, a sharp gasp escaping his lips. An intense, agonizing pressure clamped down, forcing a grimace from him. His gaze hardened as he recognized the distinctive robe, confirming his worst suspicions. Silva, propelled by a surge of power, launched himself forward, blade glinting. A monstrous hand shot out, clamping down on him with a fierce grab. With a quick flick, he sent a small object flying, striking the hand and causing a thud as it recoiled. Yet, a disconcerting feeling lingered, making him question if his senses were deceiving him. The robed figure didn't hesitate, lunging once more with predatory intent. The monstrous robed figure bore down on Silva with a chilling cry, its bloodied hand menacingly extended. Gritting his teeth, he channeled the Zalencia sword style, resolving to end the fight right here. Silva unleashed a powerful upper slash, sending the monstrous figure reeling. A piercing shriek tore from its fanged maw as his attack connected. The robed figure slammed against the far wall with a deafening thud. Silva watched, a flicker of surprise in his eyes as he pondered his resilient foe. The slumped, hooded figure lay defeated, making Silva wonder if his foe was truly this weak. From the doorway, Charl, with Riru at her side, hesitantly asked if he had finally taken the demon down. "That was an incredible slash," Charl softly praised, making him humbly reply, "Yeah, somehow." He quickly tried to dismiss the compliment, stammering that it was nothing particularly amazing. Charl called his name, her expression etched with worry. He looked up, confirming the rustling sound, and suggested they investigate its source together. Riru led them toward the dark corner, and Charl quickly pointed to where the disturbance originated. A faint struggle intensified the rustling within the shadows. Cautiously, they pushed through the boxes, following the creaking sound to an open door. Peering into the dim room, Charl gasped, "This is—" while Silva's eyes widened in shock. Inside, several distraught figures lay bound and gagged, struggling weakly. Silva's voice hitched with disbelief, demanding, "Who are these people?" His face, illuminated by a faint light, etched a profound horror as he stared at the victims. Elda's face brightened, praising Silva's name with an enthusiastic, "Well done!" She excitedly smacked his head, admitting her surprise that he rescued captives on top of defeating the monster. Nearby, Kaguya, clearly annoyed, reminded them of her own presence. With a reluctant Tichi, Elda then acknowledged Kaguya's contribution, receiving a small thank you in return. Elda proudly declared to the group that Kaguya, Charl, and Gateguard Silva had successfully resolved the vampire threat, preparing to report their success. Silva, however, immediately interjected, a hesitant question escaping his lips. Elda leaned in, a slight blush on her cheek, wondering what troubled him. He quietly confessed his desire to avoid any undue attention, specifically asking her not to credit him with defeating the vampire. Elda, unfazed, only smiled slyly, suggesting this exploit was merely another reason to invite him into the order. A wave of exasperated surprise washed over him as he realized her persistent agenda. Silva, exasperated, confronted Elda about her broken promise to cease her relentless recruitment attempts, which she blithely denied. With a sly, evasive glance, she feigned a moment of forgetfulness, musing if such a promise was ever made. She quickly redirected the conversation, clearing her throat to promise him ample rewards for his diligent work. A wave of resigned despair washed over Silva as he realized Elda's hellish insistence on him joining the Knights was far from over. Elda proudly held out a pouch of coins, declaring it a reward for slaying the vampire and rescuing the captives. With a playful hop, she gently tapped Silva on the head. Speaking of which, he began, "What happened to the women we saved?" She responded that they were all safe, likely not having been captured for long. They had suffered no severe injuries and recovered fully in no time, though Elda suspected they were intended as emergency food. Silva's expression remained troubled, a feeling of unease settling in his gut despite their recent success. He inwardly mused that something about the entire situation just didn't sit right with him. Perhaps the church held more information on vampires, as he doubted the one they fought possessed such complex intelligence for capturing emergency food. "My, what's wrong?" Elda's voice cut through his thoughts while Charl added, "Earth to Silva?" pulling him back to their presence. Elda gratefully dismissed Silva after the case, but he humbly downplayed his efforts. He soon found himself at the city gates, leaving the scene of their recent triumph behind. Yet, the reward pouch felt heavy in his hands, reflecting the persistent unease in his heart. A familiar, playful voice cut through his thoughts as Kaguya leaned in, her perceptive gaze questioning his troubled expression. Kaguya playfully declared she would always be by his side, for he was her husband, much to Silva's feigned surprise. He offered a non-committal hum, knowing she saw right through his pretense. A nagging suspicion still gnawed at him, a thought he couldn't quite grasp. Kaguya, finding his thoughtful expression lovely, teased him about looking like a detective. He, flustered, immediately told her to stop teasing him. Kaguya, with a knowing smile, promised to replenish her mana and wished her lovely detective luck in finding his answers. Silva then turned to her, expressing regret for making her accompany him for so many days. She simply smiled, dismissing his concerns by reminding him she had insisted on tagging along. He offered a soft, "Oh, right," his thoughts still swirling as he considered her words. Silva, clutching the reward pouch, mumbled about distributing his companion's share, knowing each was owed a third. Kaguya, however, dismissed the money with a theatrical flourish, declaring she had no need for such a pittance. His eyes widened, realizing she considered this substantial sum of coins utterly negligible. With a soft, knowing gaze, she then confessed that simply being with him was more than enough reward for her. "See you around, my cute husband," Kaguya chirped over her shoulder as she walked away, leaving a flustered Silva to insist she stop embarrassing him with such direct declarations. "Next time, please use the actual entrance," Silva murmured, a bead of sweat forming on his brow. Kaguya, turning back with a knowing smirk, then playfully warned him, "No cheating on me, okay?" He looked up at the sky, still processing her bold declaration of cheating. With a sigh, Silva descended the weathered stone stairs, his thoughts still swirling. Reaching the bottom, he offered a warm smile and apologized for keeping her waiting. Charl, blushing softly, cheerfully assured Silva everything was fine, then looked around, wondering where Kaguya had gone. She explained that Kaguya had some business to attend to and had already departed. Offering a grateful smile, Silva warmly thanked Charl for all her invaluable assistance. With a shy shrug, she insisted there was no need for thanks, as she had only acted for her own sake. Silva mused that Charl's invaluable contributions to solving the vampire case would surely boost her academy grades. He offered a small, grateful smile in return, telling her he was thankful for her help nonetheless. Her gentle expression, filled with quiet determination, warmed his heart. Seeing her earnestness, he felt the joy far more valuable than any other reward. Remembering the task at hand, he then brought up the matter of her reward from the mission. Charl emphatically declared she didn't need her share of the reward. Silva, visibly surprised, stammered a confused, "Why?" Blushing softly, she explained her vow to accept no rewards until she became a true hero through her own strength. His face flushed with pure admiration, cherishing her incredibly noble resolve. Charl, however, revealed she did want something in exchange for her efforts. Silva, flustered but eager to help, quickly offered to buy her anything she desired. She softly declined, explaining that her wish was not something money could ever purchase. He looked utterly bewildered, his mind racing to understand what she meant. With a gentle, knowing smile, Charl began to explain. With a tender blush, Charl revealed her heartfelt desire for more time with him. Silva agonized over his wardrobe, a rare state of frantic indecision washing over him. He was still reeling from Charl's sincere request, a dream come true for his inner otaku. Suddenly, a loud knock at the door shattered his internal turmoil, a gruff voice calling out to him. With a resigned sigh, he quickly slipped on a casual tunic, knowing time was short. Silva, in a flurry, dashed off, belatedly apologizing to Modi for his sudden departure. The large knight stood, hands on hips, trying to process the young man's frantic explanation. Then, the realization of what Silva had said, a date hit him with an astonished jolt. Silva stood in the bustling fountain square, feeling suddenly tiny amidst the crowd. A wave of raw nerves washed over him, making him acutely aware of how truly bad this felt. He fretted over what to say to her, realizing he had no prior dating experience, not even from his corporate drone life. Practicing a greeting, he awkwardly discarded the overly formal "Morning, Charlie," mentally chastising himself for sounding like an arranged marriage candidate. Suddenly, a joyous "Yes!" escaped his lips as her voice called his name, her apology for being late filling his ears. As Charl appeared in a beautiful dress, her cheeks flushed with a shy apology, Silva's eye widened, captivated by her radiant presence. Charl offered a shy "morning" as she greeted him. A quizzical look crossed her face as she noticed his odd reaction. "Huh? You're crying?" she softly asked, seeing the tears welling in Silva's eyes. He quickly apologized, explaining he was simply overjoyed to see her in casual clothes in person. With a gentle gesture, she extended her hand towards him. "There, there," she softly soothed. Charl playfully poked Silva's cheek as they walked through the bustling square. "You're acting weird, Silva," she observed, a knowing smirk playing on her lips. He flinched, grappling with an internal struggle to articulate his overwhelming emotions. Yet, despite his visible discomfort, a joyous sense of no regrets welled up within him. Charl, noticing his dazed expression, worriedly asked if his soul was leaving his body. Jolted back to reality, Silva exclaimed it was a close call, feeling as if he'd almost passed out. He sheepishly apologized for startling her, then offered a calmer "morning." She beamed back, softly returning his greeting. He then enthusiastically asked what she wanted to do, suggesting a new cafe and some shopping. Charl, already buzzing with excitement, declared she would happily go wherever he wished. The bustling capital streets were alive with the promise of a beautiful day. Silva and Charl walked side by side, enjoying their time together. Their shared laughter filled the air as they continued exploring. Inside a boutique, Charl joyfully spun around, admiring her new attire. A soft blush rose to her cheeks as she delicately touched the pretty fabric. Silva happily juggled shopping bags, as Charl eyed a charming trinket at a stall. A shy blush bloomed on her cheeks as she pressed a new purchase to her chest. Silva, beaming with joy, proudly carried their many new treasures. She skipped ahead, a radiant smile on her face, completely oblivious to his playful bag-stacking antics. Soon, the inviting sign of a cozy cafe beckoned them inside. With a cup held between them, Charl softly questioned why he had invited her on a date of all people. She gently explained that she had wanted to speak with him alone, as it had been a while since they last truly connected. Her expression turned serious as she revealed something had been troubling her lately, which she wished to discuss. His eyes widened in concern, asking what specific worries plagued her. She looked down, admitting her unease stemmed from the need to form parties and take lessons at the Heroes Academy with the party leader, Alan. Charl confided that someone had been flirting daily with party members, making her deeply uncomfortable. Silva's mind reeled. Could the hero, Alan, be the one bothering her, even dating others in their party? What's more, she revealed, he had also been making passes at her, causing her significant distress. Silva stared, a horrifying thought blooming. Was Alan trying for this world's harem route? He mused internally that the game's harem route was notoriously challenging. To succeed, every heroine's affection needed to be equally maximized, and all confession events cleared at the exact same time, or it was doomed to fail. Otherwise, dating someone mid-game inevitably led to an immediate, collective rejection from everyone. A worried frown creased his face as he wondered if Alan could survive, having already lost precious affection points with Charlie. While she had faith in him as a comrade, Charl found it sickening for someone to pursue another girl when already involved with a lover. She continued, describing how he often asked her on dates, which she consistently refused despite his pushy persistence. A wave of guilt washed over Silva as he internally apologized, remembering how often he had pursued that very routes in his past life. Then, with a deepening blush, Charl added, "And besides, person." Charl, blushing and with a distant look, remained silent, stirring her cup. She then quietly dismissed her thoughts, unsettling Silva with her sudden change. His curiosity piqued, he pressed her, eager to understand what was on her mind. Charl, stirring her tea with a subtle blush, mused on the complicated secrets a maiden's heart might hold, some of which even she couldn't share. Silva, completely taken aback by her words, suddenly collapsed back in his chair, a silent, "No way," escaping his thoughts. His mind raced, desperately trying to comprehend the unspoken truth, questioning if it could truly be. Noticing his dramatic reaction, Charl peered down from the table, her voice laced with concern as she asked what was wrong. A subtle bead of sweat formed on her brow as she waited for his reply, her worry deepening. Just then, a familiar voice cut through the cafe, addressing someone as "Charles," then realizing with surprise, "Oh, it's you!" Before them stood the renowned hero Alan, accompanied by the heroine candidates Margaret Narfis and Rena Cassius. With a smug smile, Alan called out, greeting them with an unwelcome familiarity. Turning, Silva and Charl exchanged wary glances, their faces mirroring a sudden, profound discomfort. Charl's eyes widened, startled to see Alan, Margaret, and Rena. Alan, with a smug smile, then asked Charl why she was out on a date. He seemed to suggest they had already invited her out recently, much to his companion's subtle annoyance. Silva stared blankly at the hero, observing the awkward exchange. Taking a sip from his cup, Silva internally acknowledged the two girls as Alan's current romantic interests. Silva internally noted that Rena and Margaret were known to actively support Alan's pursuit of a harem in the main story. It was no wonder Charl felt awkward in such an environment, especially since changing Academy party members was notoriously difficult. Alan's gaze then shifted to Silva, asking Charl who he was. With a cup held between them, Charl softly questioned why he had invited her on a date of all people. She gently explained that she had wanted to speak with him alone, as it had been a while since they last truly connected. Her expression turned serious as she revealed something had been troubling her lately which she wished to discuss. His eyes widened in concern, asking what specific worries plagued her. She looked down, admitting her unease stemmed from the need to form parties and take lessons at the Heroes Academy with the party leader, Alan. Charl confided that someone had been flirting gaily with party members, making her deeply uncomfortable. Alan, pointing a furious finger, demanded to know why Charl had refused his offer only to go on a date with a mob-looking guy like Silva. Charl, blushing with anger, sharply retorted that Alan was being rude to Silva and didn't need to put it that way. Dismissing Alan entirely, she rose, grabbed her bag, and told Silva they should simply go somewhere else, leaving Alan utterly bewildered. Humiliated and defeated, Alan slumped, silently admonishing himself not to pursue them further. Silva stood, aware of the judgment that Charl was involved with someone deemed a mere mob. Suddenly, a furious voice erupted, pointing directly at him and branding him an undoubted demon. Both Silva and Kaguya stared back in shocked disbelief, their faces a picture of confusion. The accuser then dramatically recounted whispers of a demon recently kidnapping women. Pointing again, he directly implicated Silva, asserting he intended to deceive Charl and was the true culprit. Others intensely discussed how Charl must have been brainwashed to refuse Alan's appealing offer. Overhearing their hurtful words, Charl cried out, insisting she was not brainwashed and asking why they failed to understand her feelings. Witnessing her raw distress, Silva looked on with a tightening gaze, softly uttering her name. The accuser's conviction solidified, believing Silva had ensnared Charl with a powerful mind spell. An enraged groan escaped him, fueled by the thought of Charl's alleged manipulation. He then furiously pointed, declaring he wouldn't tolerate Silva toying with his precious person. Silva grit his teeth, the unwarranted accusations weighing heavily on him. The accuser forcefully grasped Charl's arm, demanding she return with him at once. She sharply pulled her arm free, crying out her absolute refusal. His face contorted in dismay. He misinterpreted her defiance as a sign of Silva's severe brainwashing. Charl, thoroughly fed up, retorted sharply that he had completely misunderstood. The quiet reflection questioned if the protagonist she had looked up to so much was truly just this. Her hands clenched tightly around the teacup, a silent quoque echoing the tension within. That once heroic image shattered completely, revealing only a pathetic jerk beneath. The remnants of her shattered ideal exploded outwards, leaving nothing but broken pieces behind. Silva's attention snapped to a new, unsettling presence. Charl, her face etched with worry, softly called out his name. Before them now stood a masked figure, emanating a palpable sense of menace. A masked figure, drawing a weapon, aggressively accused Silva of being a demon, shouting at him with fervor. Instinctively, he pushed Charl protectively behind him as the situation threatened to erupt. His annoyance quickly turned to a scathing retort, calling the masked attacker a thick-skulled bonehead. The masked man, having contemplated silence, ultimately declared Silva's own verbal jabs had provoked his current outburst. Charl, tugging at his shirt, looked up at Silva with a worried query. He flashed a sheepish smile, admitting to Charl that the man had simply pushed his buttons. Then, addressing Alan directly, Silva firmly stated he would not hand Charl over in his current state. Kaguya, standing protectively beside him, coolly remarked that Alan was running his mouth. His eyes narrowed. Alan declared he didn't need anyone's permission. With a sudden blur of motion, he announced his intention to take Charl back by force. Silva's gaze sharpened, a faint, dangerous smile playing on his lips as he subtly agreed. She sadly reflected that the Alan she once knew would have understood Charl's true feelings. Silva declared he had no intention of denying Alan's aggressive methods. Yet, one specific thing Alan had done, he could never forgive. Kaguya, smiling gently, vowed she would be damned if she let a scenario unfold. That kept Charl from smiling, ever become reality. Silva confidently declared he would personally ensure Alan straightened out his guts. A worried blush crept onto Charl's cheeks as she softly uttered his name. Alan's menacing grin then widened, declaring he would rip the damned demon apart with his sword. With a dangerous smirk and clenched fist, Silva warned against underestimating a troublesome nerd. As he stared down Alan, his menacing aura fully materialized. The vast Heroes Academy training grounds lay open beneath the sky. Alan turned to Silva, expressing surprise at his chosen location. Silva, with a confident smile, countered that here Alan could unleash his full power without restraint. The other man simply scoffed, a smug grin spreading across his face as he promised regret. "Silva," she called, her voice tinged with deep concern. Tears welling, Charl apologized for dragging him into such a predicament. He gently reassured her, insisting she had nothing to be sorry for. No, the true culprit who deserved an apology was clear in his mind. His gaze hardened, declaring Alan was the one who needed to make amends. Rena loudly urged Alan to swiftly end the fight so their date could continue, while Margaret confidently asserted his power would easily dispatch such a lowly opponent. His arrogant grin grew wider, fully expecting Charl to be captivated by his strength once the battle was over. Silva glared, fiercely vowing to beat Alan and make him apologize to Charl. Charl, though worried about Alan's immense strength, promised to wholeheartedly root for him. With a determined blush, she looked up, declaring her fervent desire for him to win. He responded with a confident smile and a reassuring thumbs up. Alan's voice cut through the air, challenging, "Are you ready, Gatekeeper?" With a fierce glint in his eye, Silva simply said, "Bring it on." He scoffed, his grin widening. "You sure you want to fight me with that shabby gear?" Silva met his gaze, confidently stating this gear was more than enough to take him on. A flicker of annoyance crossed Alan's face, and he let out a frustrated "Ch." Alan, enraged, lunged forward with a furious dash, shouting defiance. His weapon whistled through the air, but Silva calmly evaded the swift slash. The Gatekeeper tilted his head, completely unfazed by the attack. Alan's eyes widened in disbelief, sweat beading on his brow as he processed the impossible dodge. Silva swiftly brought his fist forward with focused intent. Alan's eyes widened in utter shock as the blow approached. With a sharp impact, the punch connected, sending a jolt through his body. He recoiled, clutching his face and admitting the unexpected force of the attack. Silva slid back with a grunt, the impact of his punch leaving a momentary shockwave. Clutching his face, Alan wondered if that overwhelming strength came from magic enhancement. Looking up, he furiously accused Silva of being no ordinary Gatekeeper. Silva sighed, casually dismissing his own strength, while holding his sword with a languid grip. With a loud clang, the weapon then struck the ground, an abrupt action that stunned his opponent. Alan's eyes widened in furious disbelief, demanding an explanation for the unexpected move. A confident smirk played on Silva's lips as he declared his bare hands were more than enough to finish this fight. Enraged, Alan roared, refusing to be underestimated by such a defiant challenge. Alan's furious blade whistled past, but Silva fluidly evaded the attack. With a powerful thud, Silva's fists connected, jarring Alan with unexpected force. Alan reeled back, propelled across the ground as Silva swiftly pulled away. His gaze hardened. Silva had already warned, "Clench your teeth." Alan cried out in sudden agony as the unexpected blow landed. Before he could recover, Silva's powerful kick sent him violently sprawling. Disbelief washed over the onlookers as they watched him crash to the ground. Alan was violently thrown, crashing through the air with a loud thud. One onlooker gasped, realizing he had been utterly defeated in a single strike. Another, stunned, questioned if he was truly sent flying so easily. Alan, sprawled on the ground, could only grit his teeth and curse his swift defeat. Rena and Margaret rushed to the defeated Alan, frantically calling for healing magic. Silva, meanwhile, wondered if he had perhaps been too rough with his opponent. Despite the concern, a profound satisfaction filled him. Margaret and Rena struggled to help the dazed hero to his feet. His expression was a mixture of humiliation and sheer disbelief. Charl recognized the familiar figure, her eyes widening as she uttered Alan's name. Alan, unyielding, declared his intention to take her back. Well, someone began to protest that Charl wasn't his, but Alan cut them off. "Shut up," he roared, his face contorted in a furious declaration that they were bonded by a strong love. Silva's eyes widened, recognizing that very line of dialogue. He remembered Alan, resolute in his hero's attire, vowing to defeat the Demon Lord for his fallen comrades. The Demon Lord's chilling, taunting laughter resonated in his mind. its sinister words twisted, suggesting Alan's companions were now nothing but corpses. But a young Alan, unyielding, had merely responded with a defiant, knowing smirk. The young hero once fiercely declared he could feel the heartbeats of his comrades, a powerful bond connecting them all. "We're bonded by a strong love," he had whispered, his eyes closed as he imagined them still fighting. His determined grin affirmed that this unbreakable bond would last forever. But now, disoriented and defeated, Alan could only rage, his furious declaration of love sounding hollow. He once adored the hero Alan, immersed in the game and captivated by the passion in his lines. But now, he gritted his teeth, remembering those same words used so callously. "Don't spout those goddamn lines here, you womanizer," he roared, pointing an accusing finger. Alan, completely taken aback, could only respond with a bewildered, "Huh." Silva glowered, disgusted by Alan's nonsensical babbling. Alan defiantly declared his heroic ambition, gripping his chest dramatically. He then roared that Charl absolutely had to be by his side, much to the discomfort of his companions. Silva's eyes widened, realizing this man truly understood nothing at all. Alan, still reeling, furiously demanded Charl return to him. Charl, though upset, seemed to consider his unreasonable command. Silva, however, stepped in with a sharp, stern tone. "Alan, listen, listen." Startled, Alan could only stammer her name in confusion. The Gatekeeper's gaze hardened, revealing a clear resolve. "I've made up my mind." Charl, with newfound resolve, firmly declared her departure from Alan's party starting today. Her words struck Alan, leaving him utterly aghast. Silva watched, a subtle blush of surprise coloring his cheeks. Rena and Margaret both gasped, completely blindsided by the sudden pronouncement. Charl, her gaze soft, confided that thanks to him, she had finally sorted out her feelings. She realized that even if she left the party, she could still become a true hero with enough hard work. Turning with newfound resolve, she emphatically declared, "Il I listen." Charl declared with unwavering conviction that no one was manipulating her. Alan, aghast, stammered about their supposed deep bond. "While I trusted you as a comrade," she clarified, "I never held affection for you as a woman." Her voice, firm and resolute, urged him to finally give it a rest. Utterly bewildered, Alan could only manage a choked, "Wah!" Charl boldly declared her ambition to become the strongest hero and his lover, but Silva instantly rejected the romantic overture with a sharp, "No." From the ground, Alan bitterly surmised that if it weren't for Silva, Charl would never have left his side. Then, with furious resolve, Alan suddenly roared, "Soul Bond, activate!" as his body began to glow. As Alan glowed with strange power, a worried Rena found herself zapped alongside him. Behind a grim-faced Silva, the other heroines gasped as their mana suddenly drained away. Silva's eyes widened in dawning horror, recognizing the cursed technique, Soul Bond. Silva grimly recalled the Soul Bond, a spell that converts comrade bonds into raw mana and releases it. He remembered its power grew immensely with more lovers and deeper connections. By the time Alan learned this spell, he had deliberately sought out companions to forge and deepen these crucial bonds. Even Alan's relentless fixation on Charl, Silva now realized, was just another cynical attempt to strengthen his magic. Such calculated manipulation for power made the hero utterly irredeemable. A dramatic burst of force sent Alan reeling, a chaotic spectacle Silva recognized from his first playthrough of the game. The hero was treading a path Silva knew well, reminiscent of his own past missteps. Charl, eyes wide with dread, desperately warned Silva about the incredible mana Alan now commanded. Unlike the game's endless restarts, Silva knew there were no second chances in this harsh reality. Yet, a confident smile touched his lips as he assured them he would wrap up the fight in no time. Alan, radiating stolen power, dramatically bellowed his resolve to become the strongest hero and save everyone. Watching the display, Silva's gaze remained cold as he silently questioned the hero's true intent to save. A sardonic smirk touched his lips, dismissing such claims as empty words. With a cutting glare, he scoffed at the idea of a hero who had just caused a girl such sadness. Alan's form pulsed with stolen power, bellowing that he needed everyone's strength to be the strongest, while a voice scoffed at what he truly understood. Silva met his gaze, a quiet resolve in his eyes as he affirmed, "Of course I do." Then a sudden, powerful force sent Alan reeling, an agonizing cry escaping his lips. He acknowledged Alan's power, a playstyle he wouldn't deny as a former fan. Yet, as a true resident of this world, his priorities had fundamentally shifted. If anyone dared to make his favorite hero sad, he would make them pay, preparing his Zalencia sword style's secret technique. Silva unleashed his Zalencia sword style's secret technique, roaring, "Blue! Squy!" as power surged around him. A resounding whoosh of power erupted as his technique manifested, signaling the decisive strike. Silva's ultimate technique erupted with a blinding blaze of power. The overwhelming force sent a sharp, agonizing sensation through one of the heroines, making her wince. Both Rena and Margaret were flung from their feet, left dazed and sprawling on the training grounds as Alan lay defeated. Silva stood, the lingering force of his powerful technique still shimmering around him. His gaze sharpened, silently urging Alan to try and understand people's feelings a little bit. Clutching his chest in disbelief, Alan stammered about his soul bond, clearly bewildered by its failure. Now disarmed and kneeling on the ground, the hero finally looked utterly defeated. Alan sat defeated, his grand ambitions crumbling around him. Silva let out a quiet sigh, the finality of their clash settling in. Looking down, he then declared his profound disappointment in the hero.